Hello, this is Sondra Oster Baras bringing you a few words of Bible from the heart of Biblical Israel. This week's Torah portion is Masei, literally meaning travels, and what we have here is a record of basically what it is they did, the children of Israel, for these 38 years of wandering in the desert. What happened after, a few chapters back, there's a division between the second year, and suddenly we jump ahead to the last year, but we don't know what they were doing. And in this, beginning of the Torah portion, we have at least some of the places that they traveled to, and it kind of fills in the story. I'd like to focus, though, on chapter 35, and here we have the issue of cities of refuge. And first of all, let me just review what is a city of refuge and how is it used. Now, there are here a total of 6 cities of refuge. 3 remain on the eastern side of the Jordan River and 3 on the western side, which is actually very interesting because there are many more tribes on the western side than on the eastern side, and yet they have an equal number of cities of refuge. It makes you wonder, is there an anticipation that there'll be more crime on the eastern side than on the western side? But who knows? That's just a comment. Now, what happens, how these cities of refuge are used, if somebody kills somebody and he claims that it was an accident, he can run to a city of refuge and he is protected there. This is at a time when this idea of blood revenge by a relative is very, very common. And in fact, the Bible gives credence to this idea, provided that it brings it into a justice system. So basically what it is it's saying this person needs to run to a city of refuge. While there, he is protected. No relative can come in and kill him because he killed his relative. From there, he is then brought to justice. If indeed he is found to have killed by accident, he returns to the city of refuge, which again provides him full protection from any revenge, okay? And he lives there until the high priest of his time dies, at which point he can come out and then he is protected. So you have a situation where on the one hand there's a recognition that somebody would want to revenge the death of their loved ones, but on the other hand it's within certain bounds, okay? That person needs, as long as he's in a city of refuge, he's protected, and once he's allowed to come out of the city of refuge, he is protected. And that's very, very interesting if you ask me. Now, if he's brought before the court, and the court finds indeed that it was not by accident, but it was an intentional homicide, then of course he is brought to justice on murderer, and there actually is a capital punishment for someone who murders. Okay, so that's the outline. What do they do there when they're sitting in the city of refuge, and what are these cities of refuge? So what we learn at the beginning of chapter 35 is that the Levites, of course, who are given the job to serve God, and they actually have rotations in the temple. The Levites serve in the temple. They don't do the same thing as the priests do. They sing and they serve God in other ways. They also serve the priest. And there's a rotation where every Levite has his 2-week period or whatever that he's in the temple, and the rest of the time he is in a city, but he doesn't have a territory. Now, keep in mind that we're talking about an agricultural society, so most people do not live in cities. They live on farms. They are producing food. They are working the land, and so cities are the exception rather than the rule. It makes sense then that Levites, who are not supposed to be given land, and I think God puts it, they don't have land because their territory is God, okay? What does that mean? The Levites serve God. That's their main job, okay? Their main job is to serve God. And a farmer, I've never been a farmer, but I understand from farmers that when you are a farmer, the land is almost your God. I mean, not literally. In fact, farmers tend to be much stronger in faith than other people because they know that they're so dependent on God for their bounty, for the rain, for a good harvest, for all the things that to avoid pestilence and whatever it is that would at one point harm the harvest, and even to today. But it is very hard for a farmer to get away from his land and to devote himself to something else. Even when he goes somewhere, he has his land on his mind. And what God wants is a tribe that has nothing else on their mind, that pulls them, that holds them, except God. And that's what the Levites are. So where do they live? Instead of living on farms, they live in cities. And indeed, we see in chapter 35 that God gives 42 cities to the Levites. And these cities, of course, are spread out all over the place. But what's very interesting is that these 6 cities are also Levite cities. The 6 cities of refuge are added to the 42, also become Levite cities, so for a total of 48 cities of refuge. What does that mean? That means that these people who accidentally murdered somebody are sitting in a Levite city. Now, what are the Levites doing? And they're in cities all over the country. What are they doing when they're not serving in the temple? So our traditions are that these Levites are actually teaching the nation of Israel. They were the ones that, if we talked about the territory, their territory is the territory of God. Their mission, therefore, is 2 weeks of the year they're actually serving in the temple. The other 52 weeks of the year, or 50 weeks of the year, they are teaching the nation about God. They are teaching Bible. They are teaching about God's ways. They are teaching about moral behavior. This is their job. And the centers of their teachings is in the cities, which makes sense. I mean, this is where they live. And don't forget, the Levites live off of the tithing that is being brought to them by the people who live in the surrounding farms. Everyone is supposed to tithe from his produce and give it to the Levites. And so that's how they live. That's their income, so to speak. That's their sustenance. But what are they doing? They are in turn teaching all those who live around them in the cities, but also in the farms that surround the cities. And so very interesting that you have these people who accidentally killed someone and they're sticking them with the Levites. And this is seen as being the right place for them, okay? Because whether you clearly, if you killed someone intentionally and you were found to be guilty of murder, that's a whole different ballgame. But if you killed somebody accidentally, clearly there's a problem. First of all, you should feel guilty. I'm assuming if you don't feel guilty, there's something wrong with you. If you feel guilty, then you have something you have to deal with. And it's a very difficult thing to deal with, to know that you took someone's life even though you really didn't want to. But it could also mean that you were careless, you were negligent, there was still a problem with your behavior. And there's also this other concept that says it didn't happen to you out of nowhere. If we look at God kind of ruling the world, if a person killed someone accidentally and therefore has to deal with this, not just his own guilt, but he has to leave his family and at least for a period of time be in exile in a city of refuge, it didn't happen for no reason. That God, this happened because there was some other sin or some other thing that this person needed this process, either to expiate for a sin or for some other reason. And what better place to work this all out than in a place full of Levites whose whole job is to teach about God, to help people work through their guilt, to help people study, to help people come closer to God, to help people find comfort in their faith. This is, if people go to their synagogues or they go to their churches or they go to their religious leaders to help them. These are cities of religious leaders. That's where they are. And, so this is how these two things really come together. And it really is very, very interesting, I think, if you think about it, that these cities of refuge are not prisons, but they're places of spiritual return. Have a wonderful weekend. Shabbat Shalom.
I hope you enjoyed that video. And we'd like to be sure you're getting all of our video content. So just click on the subscribe button below as well as on the notification bell. And that way you will have easy access to all our material. We look forward to staying in touch with you. God bless you and have a wonderful day.